All right, did you get the link?
Yeah, hold on. I'm sending it to my
Yeah, yeah,
so.
yeah. I think we're live right now. We'll see if anyone's around to give us feedback right away, but you should be able to see when you open that link, you should be able to see our YouTube channel and the tier already up, I think, or the tier list. So let me know when you have it. Or it's gonna take a while before all this is like smooth and makes sense.
All right, yeah, I see it.
Okay. So you
Nice,
see
nice.
the tiers, right? And everything?
Nice, and everyone's picture and everything.
Word.
Pretty sweet, man.
Pretty well set up actually, I think.
Yeah, yeah. All right, yeah. It looks like the live channel's on a little bit of a delay, but
Yeah.
oh no, actually, I'm just on the delay.
No,
Okay,
there's
all right. I
definitely a
think we're
slight
good,
delay.
man.
You just mute, yeah, just mute the audio so you
Oh,
don't get feedback. But yeah, there will be
yeah,
like
yeah.
some reason.
All right, this is legit, man.
Yep,
Gonna
pretty
make some.
legit. First like legit show like where I have somebody else also participate. Okay. All right, we'll just start like casual. All right, welcome everyone. This is our first, I guess, non-Wonku run stream with a guest. We're gonna try to do these pretty often whenever people have time. And for this one, me and John decided we're gonna, give a little thoughts on the new rule, the HFFL Devy Squad, as they call it. And we thought a fun way to look at it would be to tier list it and give our opinions on what we think people did right and people did wrong. So, yeah, how's it feel to be on the first, I guess, like casual, non Wonku and Dustin show, but more like a kind of in between show, John?
It feels good, man. I mean, I think we all love this
Be honest,
stream
be honest.
and more content.
Does it help that you're coming off a win last week?
I mean, I do like fantasy when I win.
I will
When
tell
I
you
lose.
these
So
shows are definitely harder to like get pumped for when you're like coming off like a bunch of losses and stuff. So hopefully we'll be able to like get enough people involved so when like people are feeling kind of like damn fantasy is just not not good to me lately, they can like kind of disconnect and have some other people um do some of it.
no, we'll just have a support group for those people.
Exactly. So yeah. Um, hold on. I might have double audio for you. People are saying. Let me just see which one I can get rid of. Okay. Talk again. Hello. Is it better now, Mike? Or yeah. I think it was on my end. I think I might have double audio coming through. That's why. We'll just move on for now until someone tells us it's worse or not. So let's just how about you explain, I guess, the gist of the Devy Squad rule? Um, like what do you think the intent of it is? Um, and like how do you see it foresee it being used, I guess, by the teams as people, develop a strategy around it?
Yeah, so I mean, I think everyone loves having an extra roster spot.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
at minimum, it's just the extra spot in the season. But I think once you get into the different levels, it can be used to really save sort of a bullet
Mm-hmm.
throughout the season. And if you don't really need to use that bullet, it might actually end up becoming a extra keeper spot for the next season.
Right.
And so that I think is the max potential. And then anywhere in between, honestly, is where some of this decision making is hard because you have to really make a decision before you have any data about the season. And so it's definitely an interesting spot. But yeah, anywhere between just extra roster spot to like really strategizing and adding a little dynasty element to the league.
Yeah, I think probably everybody has had a situation where they've picked a player that they kind of like in the draft or whatever, and then with our league, you know, being so competitive and everybody's so quick to like guys that are about to break out and stuff, like you just don't have the luxury to you know, kind of like hold on to things for way too long. You know, like injuries happen, bye weeks happen, and I probably everybody has dropped someone that you know turned out to be pretty good somewhere else, and hopefully this is one method or you know route people will have to like you know make good on those hunches. You know, like it really does suck when you like think a player is better than everyone else thinks that they are, but you just don't get the benefit at all because I don't know. Let's say your tight end got hurt or like you know you know you had to make a move for a kicker during like you know some like weird stuff that doesn't really have to do with like you having conviction on stuff. So hopefully this will be a cool and interesting way and we'll be able to you know over a long period of time see like who has a you know higher hit rate, like who what kind of players do teams want to you know go for and stuff. So yeah, I think this is a really interesting wrinkle that we added to our league, and think just you know looking at what people have, we should be able to see some like interesting maybe trends or like you know some choices that maybe fit in with like the personality of the owner that you know you would think ahead of hand, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah. That
so
especially with the increasing rookie fee schedule, I think it
right,
came at a good time for sure.
right, yeah. Now, yeah, it also helps you you know hang on to like third and fourth round picks, and like I think those are going to become you know just a more important and like real part of you know, team rosters now. Whereas like, you know, third round picks before people were like, you know, whatever, like I'm not even gonna bother to ask for a third round pick in a trade because like who cares? Like whether I get someone in the third round or not, like nobody really values that. But like yeah, I think in certain drafts there will be enough rookie talent where it will be pretty valuable to have a third round pick, you know, an early third round pick, you know, maybe even to the fourth round pick, depending on you know how strong the draft class is. Can you name these guys by just looking at their faces, or you want to try guessing?
Yeah, I could definitely. I know these
You
guys.
know all these guys?
Yeah, I know all of them, man.
Okay,
Like
okay,
these are
go.
guys that our scouting team has looked at throughout the off season. Um, and yeah, like I'm excited to rank them.
Okay, so for the people that may not recognize all these you know Devy Squad guys by face, can you go left to right and name them without looking them up?
All right, so left is Bateman.
Yeah.
Um, I actually don't know the second guys. I'm gonna assume it's Musgrave because I just don't know what he looks like.
Ah, that's not even the right
Oh no,
color.
actually that's
The
Stetson. Is this Stetson?
Yeah,
Stetson
yeah,
Bennett?
it's
Sorry,
Stetson
my
Bennett.
yeah,
Some
okay, my
some
thing is
disrespect
actually
for a great college player you got there.
no, you know what it is? It's like my YouTube, the
Yeah.
bar is
Okay, okay.
covering the
Ah,
face.
okay, yeah.
So it's kind of like I can't fully
Yep.
see it. The third guy, is that Musgrave?
Dude, you could just tell by their jerseys. What
No,
jersey?
I literally
Oh,
can
it's too
only
small.
see like their eyes. No,
Okay.
because like the YouTube bar is like the play bar.
Yeah.
It's like
Okay. Fair.
literally covering like half of their head. So
Okay.
you
That
might need to help me with the next two.
that is Chase Brown, the third guy
Okay, Chase Brown. Okay.
on the Bengals. Uh,
I don't know who the fourth guy is either. Sorry, I guess we didn't do the facial scouting, just read some reports. But the fifth guy is Will Levis. That I know.
yeah. All right, we'll come back to the
Who's
fourth
the?
one. Just keep going.
All right. Oh, okay. That's so much better, actually. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Scroll
the
up for you.
the fourth guy is Hendon Hooker.
Yes.
Fifth guy Levis. Kendry Miller, Mingo, Musgrave, Roshan, and Ty J
Okay,
Spears.
so it was the YouTube bar. Okay.
Yeah, no, like I was literally looking at like just their face with like just their eyes and nose, a little bit of the mouth, and
Okay.
well, it was a little tough.
So let's start like this. Like this isn't like the definitive way to I guess tier it, but just purely on talent. Like if you had to say, oh, one of these guys is gonna be, a star one day. Which guy do you like the most here? And then I'll tell you who I like.
I mean, I think Roshan Johnson is probably gonna be a
I,
star one day, right?
I was almost gonna say leave out your own guy because I knew you were just probably at least gonna mention him. But that's fair. Other than Roshan, give me who you think has the best chance of being a star.
I'd probably say I'm gonna give it to Ty J Spears only
Hmm.
because the
Oh, we're just
dude.
patting
I
ourselves on the
mean,
back.
I mean, it's it. He just looks electric. I think Derrick Henry's might be his last year in the Titans. I mean, for as long as the ACL less leg will hold up,
Hmm.
I do think he has the most potential.
Okay. For me, I actually have kind of liked what I've seen out of Jonathan Mingo. I think he is kind of raw. I think it might take, most of the season to, really show what he's capable of, especially because he has a rookie quarterback with him. But yeah, looking at this list, I see a bunch of guys that could be stars, but Mingo, I'm really interested to see if he does progress the way that I'm thinking. Um, Okay, but that's not the only thing that goes into what's, an S tier. Would you say there's an S tier guy? Like if you think
Yeah,
about it long
John
term,
Min, man, John Min.
John Min is his HFFL nickname, yes. Uh if you think about like the future, do you think any of these guys, will look back and be like, "Oh, damn, like that was an S tier, Devy squad?" Or do you think it's too early to say that and should we just start with A tier? So like what do you think the first tier should be?
So I think S tier. I don't know if anyone is quite in the S tier for me yet,
Yeah, I don't
but
think
for
so
me,
either.
S tier would be definite long-term value
Yeah.
that'll continue to grow,
Mhm.
and also potential for immediate, like
Mhm.
pretty higher tier production. That would
Right.
be S tier for me.
I think there's
Um,
gonna be a situation in the future where um there's a guy that maybe either he starts with in like a pre-existing injury or something where it'll be like perfect as in like, oh, like you're definitely not gonna want to use him first year, but the ability to carry him over is basically like a keeper like, you know, not that it would have happened like Bijan wouldn't have fallen that bad, but like just imagine like for some reason he was like out the whole first year and he was like that ridiculous of a talent and somehow like draft was deep enough where he like some situations kind of similar to that will happen where we'll be like, oh man, like that's such a good usage of Devy squad because like once you activate him you don't get the spot back, so you kind of do want to hold onto it as long as you can really hold out. But I don't see any guy here that's like obviously going to be, someone you want to hold over to next year or, some of the guys that I think are better. I think, if the team is desperate enough, they're going to have to use them this year, So I don't see anyone quite in that S tier. So I think this year I would probably just start with A tier as the highest tier. Do you agree with that?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think A tier for now. I mean,
Right.
we might switch this like at the end of the season. Like as an example, I think
Yeah, yeah,
Alvin
for sure.
Kamara and Justin
Yeah, for
Herbert
sure.
in the past would have been S tier.
Word, word.
But if we did it in the preseason or week two, we probably wouldn't have known that. So
Word, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, no, yeah, we could definitely revisit it, I think, later, maybe after the trade deadline or like when it's closer to like seeing like which teams are gonna activate their guys or not. Like, playoff teams might want to just activate, a guy to like help them down the stretch. Whereas a team that isn't really in it might just be like, okay, this guy's like, startable right now, but if I can carry him over, that's worth more to me. So Yeah, we could definitely revisit it later. I'm just gonna take off the S tier for now. Okay. So who would you say is in your A tier? Give me some names.
So I think Roshan Johnson for
Okay.
sure.
Roshan Johnson for sure, he says. Yeah.
And so Ty J Spears too.
Okay, yeah. Keep patting ourselves on the back.
Yep, yep. I would put I would put Musgrave in there because I think first year tight ends, again, like they
Mm,
have pretty potentially like long term potential, but usually that
mm.
first year they're not going to
That's
reach that ceiling.
right. That's
Um,
actually something I didn't think of. Like, but that theory that first year tight ends don't break out because it's just a pretty slow developing position. You have to learn blocking schemes, route schemes and stuff. So there is that common knowledge that you're really going to see the best out of a tight end like in their second year and maybe beyond, right? So if you do believe in that, like a tight end does actually seem like a really good player type to stick in the uh the Devy squad. Yeah, that's actually pretty sharp. I wonder if like people will start to catch on to that and like you know see the Devy squad as like a perfect way to hold over tight ends because they do kind of take a while to like break out. Um, for me, I
yeah,
think
and
I
I'll
do.
say Roche and just quick thing, just on Roshan and Taiji, the reason why I put them ahead is because they have like a current role
Mm-hmm,
that could easily expand, I think.
mm-hmm,
So that's why for me they're one and two.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean I think I agree. I mean if you just go by the running backs, the two up there, and then there's Chase Brown and Kendra Miller, right? Um, Chase Brown Mixon is kind of old, so maybe he does eventually look like the next guy, but you would clearly have to say Roshan and Tajay look closer to being the next guy, like whether that's this year or next year or whenever down the line. They do seem we've seen a little bit more of their talents is probably what's separating them and Brown and Miller. If Miller wasn't hurt, I honestly think he would probably be up there with them just because it would be the similar situation unless he looked very bad or something, I guess. But he's just had the hamstring, right? So he hasn't. I mean, you haven't really seen anything from him, but it could very much well be a similar situation with Kendra Miller. But yeah, I guess that is the differentiator. You just haven't seen anything, whereas you have seen stuff from all the guys up there. For me personally, I also really do like Mingo, and I would put him up there. But I do agree that we haven't probably seen as much from him as the others. So I guess this A tier kind of seems like have seen enough to know that they're like somewhat interesting and can expect bigger role or development by next year, right?
Right, right. And I think also you could potentially think that with one thing going their way, maybe they get activated this year, like
True,
depending on the need.
true. To know they're interesting and role can expand greatly either this year or next. Pretty long tier description, but I think that is what differentiates these guys from the next group. Um, so if that's our A tier, what do you think would fall under B tier for us?
So I think it's kind of the opposite of this, where the talent is there, but we just haven't seen anything yet.
Mm, okay, yeah,
But they're also still in a role that could expand. But they're in a role that can expand though, because
right,
I think
right,
some of these other guys like something like drastic needs to change, or it's definitely like a year of development for them, right?
right,
So
right.
B is we haven't seen anything, but
Hmm.
role can still expand.
Okay, yeah. So haven't seen anything really, but role can expand. So who do you think falls under that category?
Yeah, so for me, I think Kendry Miller, Jonathan Mingo. Um, I think that might be it. Yeah, I think that's it for me,
Yeah,
actually.
Chase Brown could have been. But he's like definitely a half tier down from I think Kendry Miller and Jonathan Mingo for me. But there is the argument that he's also. I mean, we haven't seen anything, but like a mixing injury would propel him to like relevancy maybe. So he is kind of like in that like B and a half or C tier. Like, so what do you think? More of a C or more of a B?
So yeah, honestly, I just don't know anything about Chase Brown,
Mm-hmm.
but Duho did scout him,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm fine with putting him in B tier.
Yeah, I think he's like definitely in between, but situation wise, like I don't think there's enough to say that he's like clearly different from Kendry Miller. Like he got drafted lower, obviously, in the real draft and in the HFFL draft, so I would assume that he's less talented. But I think running backs are pretty hard to predict in that manner. So I would probably just put him at the end of B tier. But definitely not on the same levels as the first two ahead of him in terms of like perceived talent. Right. So I think I know where you're going with C
Yeah,
tier.
yeah, and
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and one other thing on the B tier. So I do think like Kendry though and Mingo had some kind of role, whether it be coming in for a few downs. But Chase Brown, I think, as from what I've seen so far,
Yeah, I think
Mixon
he's been
has the
hurt
full
too.
role. And
Hmm.
does he? Yeah, does he even have the third down role or a change of pace role? Like, I don't think he
He
has any
might not
role with
even be
that,
the
right?
backup, but he has been hurt, so it's a little murky. Um, but the same thing has also been with Kendra Miller. Like people assumed he was going to come in as the second back behind Jamal Williams until Kamara comes back, but then I think Kendra Miller's been like hurt the first 2 weeks, so it's been like Tony Jones Jr. who isn't a guy, so it hasn't been as easy to tell. I would say they're like in the same tier, but most people would probably have Kendra Miller a good amount higher just based on like pre-draft stuff. But their situation, I think, is actually pretty similar because, you know, Kamara is probably going to be the main guy when he comes back, and Mixon is, definitely the main guy in Cincinnati. Um, Jamal Williams is still there, so like Kendra Miller getting a huge role this year would probably not be that easy, at least. Like he's gonna have to earn it. And Chase Brown, we don't even know if he's the second running back or if he has like third downs or anything. Um, so both of them are,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
think, close enough.
That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. So yeah, I think I know where you're going with C tier. Like, you want
All
to
right.
explain what that could be?
Yeah, I think C tier is like guys who have, potential, but we probably won't see anything from them this year.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not even next year. But the case for them is one day they might become something great.
Right, right. And I think, I mean, yeah, there are three guys that are like the same position, and I think quarterback is going to be the position where we see a lot of people in this tier. And while like we're ranking these tiers like A, B, and C, like I do want to say they're not like straight like value. Like some teams are going to be like, you know, I want the chance to have like a franchise quarterback, like, and that's going to be C tier because like a lot of times those quarterbacks aren't going to always have a chance to start year one. But like you're less likely to see something from them like first year, but it's arguable that like, getting a quarterback that has, star potential and holding them is potentially just more valuable than, a running back that's going to be a 2 or 3 or 4 year keeper. a quarterback could really be that 5-year keeper, or uh, something ridiculous because of how cheap these guys are starting. So I just want to point out that it's not just like, oh, A
Oh,
is definitely better.
yeah. I will say this though. I think of people in the C tier though, like as an example, if a quarterback we know for sure is the successor, maybe they
Mm-hmm.
might be in B or A tier, right? But C tier
Mm-hmm.
for me
Right.
is also
Right.
next year, you
Yep.
might be able to swap him out for something better in the Devy squad.
Mm-hmm. That's actually really true. Yeah. Like I will say, like this probably isn't the strongest like C tier in terms of like, oh, we know like there will be years where teams take a quarterback like top five and then like sit him first year anyway, and those guys will be like, I think, way more attractive than maybe some of these guys, because some of these guys are way lower drafted. Like you don't even know if they're ever gonna get a chance. Um, Nor do you know that like they're going to get a chance next year, or that even the quarterback ahead of them is going to be gone, right? So I think we will rank probably these guys like in the order appropriate, and the ceiling for like this type of Devy squad player is just so much higher. Like there's definitely a scenario where um like they fit the criteria for C, but they could be like even more valuable than guys in like B or A. So but this year, I would say probably not that. So who do you like the most out of these guys here? Who's first in this tier?
So I guess for me it'll probably be Levis,
Mm-hmm.
Hooker, and Bennett, only
Mm-hmm.
because I do think Levis is at least in the plans
Mm-hmm.
for the Tannehill replacement. I think Bennett actually, I don't know if I read this wrong. He might have had like some drinking problem, so he like was away from the team or something like that. Again, I don't remember if that was actually him, but I did read something about one of the backup QBs. So if
Mm-hmm.
that's him, he's definitely end of the tier for me.
Yeah. I think I agree with Bennett being last because yeah, I mean he was I think the lowest drafted out of these guys, not super young, and I mean, judging talent is one thing, but you're probably just best off going by, how much draft capital teams invest in these guys. That's probably what tells you who has the best chance to get a legit chance, like on some kind of timeline, right? They're gonna want to see something out of Levis within the next, year and a half at latest, I think, right? Whereas, Hooker or Bennett could just be full long term backups that those teams are like okay with like them never getting a chance. They're just like, oh, if you force our hand, maybe you'll get a shot. If not, like you just are a nice cheap backup for us to like develop, and like whatever happens, right? So I do think Levis is probably the top of this tier. um and like, yeah, honestly, like I wonder if there were better picks to stash than both of these guys, but I do understand that quarterback is like such a hard position to predict, where like Brock Purdy ends up being like, a viable quarterback, where, you know, I can say like, oh, like these guys were drafted so late, like why would you put a Devy spot on them? But then there is the possibility that they do, everything does fall into the right place. They're in strong offenses, with good offensive minds, and like, maybe by next year, like we're like, oh wow, that was like such a money, franchise changing Devy squad stash. But definitely like as of now, it's hard to like, put a lot of value in a guy that coming off ACL, like for Hooker. Both of these guys are kind of old. And the QB that's in front of them, Goff and Stafford, definitely not young, but they're both playing at a pretty high level, right? So, you don't see them needing replacement like for sure next year. Whereas, I think for Levis, Tannehill definitely needs probably replacing either this year or next year, right?
Yeah, no, and I do think some people, if they use the Devy spot as, hey, like I just want a guy I'm probably not going to touch for the whole year,
Hmm. Right,
and
right.
I
I
want him
actually
to be
think
kind of a lottery ticket. This is the tier, like where we'll
right.
see a lot of those types of guys.
So yeah, I think this is where we'll see the strategic split. I think some teams will, continue to take guys that, no chance of me touching it. It's just, you know, 100% a stash spot that I'm happy to not have to like consider, oh, like this guy is like a top 40 running back. Like, do I activate him and then your roster gets tighter? Or do I just try to like get by with it? Like some teams are definitely just gonna be like, that's one consideration of why maybe, I someone would prefer taking a quarterback that you could stash and like the upside is like very high. Whereas some guys I think will use it as like, you know, oh, this guy could be good this year, and I just want to, pack my roster with as many guys as possible. Jay mentioned Malik Willis. I think Malik Willis would have actually been a pretty good Devy Squad guy too, probably over Bennett and Hooker. Although I mean, if you really hated what you saw out of Willis last year, which is pretty fair, I can understand pretty disagreeing with it. But I guess the good thing about Willis is he probably will get like another chance this year to like show if he's made any improvement. And knowing whether you want to cut the Devy guy or not, like going into next year, I think is valuable too. Because like if Hooker and Bennett don't play at all this year, like what's your decision like going into next year? You probably like whether you cut him loose or not, like you're not going on much information, right? So in that way, I could have seen like Malik Willis being a good pick. I actually thought you were gonna draft Malik Willis and stash him on the Devy squad.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I was going to,
you're
but then
going to,
I,
but
got sucked into
you
Kyler.
you also
Got sucked
had
into
yeah you
Kyler,
also
but
had three
yeah,
quarterbacks on your roster and then you got a Kyler and I was like, oh well, then it would just be like way too much for you to also take Malik Willis. That's just like too much quarterback investment for sure.
yeah, but I do agree that I think Maluli would be, you know, one of the best Devy spot guys, at least from the quarterback position right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a key point is like you want to see something from them this year so that like okay, like are they leaning towards like this guy definitely sucks because then you could just move on from him, or are they like, oh, we saw enough where like if he's the starter going into next year, it would be kind of like Jordan Love this year, except he snuck through on a practice squad where LIC had Jordan Love going into this season. They saw just enough out of him, and the situation was clear enough where um, you know you would love to just carry him over if you could. And then this Devy spot is even safer because like nobody can take a chance on your guy and like force you to you know lose that spot going into the draft. So yeah, I am kind of surprised nobody went for that, but I think part of it is probably people didn't really like what they saw from him last year. If it was a little bit more promising, I think it could have been a pretty good pick. So there's one guy still sitting out there. Are we making a new tier for him, or can we tack him on at the end of this one?
So I think the final tier is going to be just extra roster spot.
Okay,
So
this guy's gonna be very
um,
lonely in his
I
solitary roster spot. But
But no, I don't think that's like the wrong way to use it. But I
mhm.
don't know if, again, like we've seen enough of him. I think like we kind of know what he
Right,
is at this point, and then
right.
there's
He is
more
different.
competition for targets,
I
and
will
then there's
say, yeah, he is
yeah,
different from like every other guy we've talked about, where he clearly doesn't fit into like any of the categories we've made so far. So, you know, yeah, whether he's good or not, like he definitely is in his own like grouping for sure.
Right. And I think the Devy squad is still the same amount of games as practice squad in terms of eligibility.
Hmm.
Is that true?
Yeah, it is. Is he? Yeah,
Yeah. So
is he
I
gonna
think
pass his?
he's also
Is he
has
gonna pass his
less
eligible?
time.
How many games has he played in his career?
I'm not sure, but I think he's played at least over, I don't know. He's played like, what is this, his third season now?
This is his third
Second
season, but he's
season?
missed huge chunks. He has 21 games played, so he could go over at the end of this year. But I mean, that's assuming he's healthy for every game.
Right, right. So yeah, I think he's definitely a guy who is going to be in the Devy squad this year, but probably not again next year. So
Yeah,
it's
I
kind
don't
of
think
like
he'll
using it as extra
be.
roster spot.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be eligible. Like if he is healthy for the majority of the season, he wouldn't be eligible. And I think a big loss of the value is if you can't carry him over at all, that's just a practice squad spot that nobody can poach, right? Like that's I guess you're only using half
Right,
of the mechanism. The point is like you kind of want to carry them over if you can, because it could be like an extra keeper spot. But yeah, so like I do want to say like Sandy Pines has had this like history, especially recently, where I think they've taken like the least rookies in like pretty much every draft, while some teams are taking like five, six. Like a lot of guys in the rookie draft, they tend to take their first round rookie. If someone's interesting in the second round, they'll take like one there. But I don't think they've gone over two or three drafted rookies in a really long time. And while I think that was probably pretty good strategy, like for a lot of the years, I think with the Devy squad, teams are gonna want to, at least take an interesting guy that you don't want to use this year. And like, the rookie draft, I think, is like a really good place to look for it rather than like, Rashad Bateman, where probably can't carry them over unless they miss like the exact number of games, right? So like I wonder if they
right,
kind of overlooked like how they wanted to play this Devy squad, and then like by the time they had to choose, they're like Rashad Bateman is like pretty much the only guy eligible. Because if they were keeping Charbonnet active, like I don't think they actually had like many other guys on their roster. So I'm curious if it was that, or if they just kind of just don't see this as like that consequential of a spot. Like, you know, to be fair, a lot of these guys are long shots, so they're like, what's the difference between Hendon Hooker and Bateman on your Devy squad? Like, it's all whatever. Like, I do wonder if like it's a tack they'll change going forward, or if they kind of like are going to start looking into like the third round, the fourth round, or compensation round to look for a guy that maybe fits one of these other categories a little bit better.
yeah. Because I mean, one thing I will say is another like way to think of it is, in terms of if you have a keeper, a 1 year keeper's minimum raise is $8.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're managed to not use one of these guys and they end up being at least a decent 1 year keeper, the raise is only $5 next year still.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
you're
um,
completely delaying like you're basically redshirting them and like delaying their whole like cost schedule, and like depending on what your needs are at the end of the season, like if you're out of the playoff hunt completely, like you can really sneak a pretty good player across, without anyone being able to poach, without it even being like an $8 raise, without you having to decide like, oh, this guy looks good, but do I want to give him, a deal? Like you can just wait, activate him mid-season, and then like you don't commit yourself to something, So I do think this is kind of a missed opportunity for Sandy Pines. I know they had three second round picks this year coming into the draft, and they left with only one of them, right? Charbonnet. But I'm pretty sure they could have ended up with, Rashee Rice or uh, Marvin Mims, or, just some guys that could be a lot more valuable next year than they are this year. Like I don't know if Rice will emerge to be consistent early in this year, but it could definitely happen later this year, and that's the type of guy I think you wanna, carry over. So, um, in that sense, I think they might have missed out on some opportunities, like 5 free agent budget for I think the pick that was Mims or Rice, like, maybe the upside of the Devy squad stash is worth more than the 5 fab, but I guess we'll see.
We shall see.
Yep. Okay, so I think this
Yeah.
is our final tier list. I will
The Rashad
screen
Bateman tier, though. We
the
should call it the
Rashad
Rashad
Bateman
Bateman
tier.
tier forever.
Yeah. I will screenshot it and we'll have it somewhere, and we'll look back and then we'll see how wrong or dumb we were. Um, and yeah, I think you and me should just do kind of like tier list stuff, and we'll just like come up with more ideas for stuff to like kind of like separate and categorize. Categorizing stuff is, I think, one of our strengths. Like we point out what is the difference between two things that seem pretty similar. Uh, so yeah, if
Sure,
we
for sure, for
yeah if we
sure,
do
yeah.
have something, we can just like pull up one of these whenever, and then this is like a pretty good setup with the website that like shows like the options and the tiers, and you could like define them and stuff. So I think this is a decent idea going forward. Yeah, and good job, John.
Thanks,
Yo,
thanks.
very very low energy though.
But yeah, no,
I was expecting like a little bit more hype from you, man.
I mean, it's the first show. We gotta like,
True,
stick to
yeah.
the
We gotta
facts,
settle
try to
in.
be
We gotta
as,
settle in. Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No hot, no, the takes can't be too hot.
I
Yeah,
know
we're trying
that.
to be
Yeah,
a
you've
reputable
matured.
tier making crew.
You've matured too much because, like, a few years ago, you'd be spouting off making some hot takes, and then they'd be hilarious in like 2 or 3 weeks to like look back at. But like everything you say is like so measured now. You're like, yeah, I mean, it could be this, but like we gotta see. It's boring, man. You gotta sow the chaos. You gotta say, 9 guys in this fantasy league can win any random league except for one, and then everyone just gotta get fired up off of that. Okay,
Yeah,
though.
no,
Good.
those takes are coming, man. Too early in the season. Also, Justin Fields, man, he's like my
Dude, yeah, we're in
full
the
energy is dedicated on this timeline. So
dude. John texts me like maybe like 30 times a day, and like 25 of them are Justin Fields related. So it's like I'm in the vortex with him. So it's tough for sure. It's energy draining. Um, but yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks to everyone for listening to our impromptu just discussion about what we think Devy Squad is. Obviously, since Devy Squad can't be poached or like traded, like this is an easy one for us to talk about without influencing anything. Like nobody can, like even if we think our guys are the best, like like it doesn't matter. Like we're not pumping up something so that somebody poaches or like somebody doesn't poach. So I thought this one was a pretty easy one and good one to start out with. We will try to revisit it at some point and see, how everything panned out a little bit, and over a long term, we'll really see like strategies from each team. And yeah, that's it for today. Peace.
all right, later. Thanks.